Good morning. It's 8:06 a.m. on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. I'm Beverly Hallberg, filling in for the vacationing Mary Walter, and I'm alongside Vince Colonnese. Vince, good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good morning.
And joining us now is Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, former Commissioner for the Federal Election Commission, and former counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Justice Department. Hans, good morning, and thanks for being here.
Good morning, Beverly. Good morning, Vince.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Hans, there's a big vote expected on election law bill HR1 today. This is also known as the For the People Act. Do you think this bill, if put into law, is really for the people?
No, it's for the incumbents, the Democratic Incumbents Act in Washington. It's probably the worst and most dangerous piece of legislation I've ever seen introduced in Congress in all my years in Washington. It's a complete takeover of the process of running elections, and it dictates all of these really, really bad rules. It even sets up if you can believe this, a public funding program for people running for Congress. So if you're a Republican who supports Republican candidates, your taxpayer money is going to be used to help Democrats run for office, and vice versa.
It's amazing. So lay out some of the things that are in here that are really worrying you. I can start with one that I suspect is probably worrying you, which is that HR1 would make mandatory nationwide that states allow something called ballot harvesting, where paid political operatives can go door to door and can collect as many ballots as they like. And even compel people to vote for who they want them to vote for. Say you go to an old folks home, you work the whole home down, you get all these ballots registered for the person you want, you seal them up and you take them with you. That'll be entirely legal under HR1.
Yeah, and in order to make sure there aren't any witnesses available who can testify what happened to that voter, this law eliminates all witness signature requirements that states may have for absentee ballots. In addition to that, it gets rid of all state voter ID laws. You can't ask anybody for an ID when they come to vote. And at the very same time, it mandates that states put in what's called same-day registration. So a state has to allow someone to walk into a polling place, register, and immediately vote. Now, if they can't ask for an ID, that means that anyone could walk into any polling place in any state, give a false name, register, immediately vote, walk out of the polling place, and go do it again at another polling place down the street, and states can do absolutely nothing to stop that.
And what does this do for states' rights in the election process? We know that states have different processes, different ways that machines that people can vote on or write-in voting. What does this mean for the federal government? Are they superseding the majority of state laws on elections?
Yes, that's exactly what's happening. And look, these are all really bad election administration provisions. Oh, by the way, it also severely restricts the ability of states to, for example, compare their voter registration lists with that of neighboring states to find people who might be registered, for example, in both North Carolina and South Carolina. But there's also all these provisions in it that change campaign financing rules for federal campaigns, which really severely infringe on the First Amendment rights of people to engage in political speech and political activity. And again, it's just extremely dangerous, and it's going to make it, in essence, easier to cheat, easier to manipulate election results, and easier for folks in control in Washington to chill any speech by anybody who would be critical of them.
You know, there was once a bipartisan commission in the early 2000s to try and establish confidence in our elections, and Jimmy Carter was a part of it. I know you're very familiar with this, Hans. When they did it, one of the key quotes from the report was, quote, "The electoral system cannot inspire public confidence if no safeguards exist to deter or detect fraud or to confirm the identity of voters." Now, that used to be a non-controversial point. And over the course of the last two elections, we've seen extensive distrust in our system from both political parties. In 2016, Democrats didn't trust that Donald Trump had actually won the election. And in 2020, there are a lot of Republicans who do not trust that Joe Biden actually won the election. Shouldn't Washington's primary focus be to restore confidence in our system?
Yeah, and this bill would do the exact opposite of that, because in fact what it does is it gets rid of and eliminates any and all of the safeguards that states have put in. You think people have lost confidence in the integrity of the process now. If this law is passed and these measures go into place, in future elections, the majority of Americans will always doubt the credibility of the outcome.
Well, let's talk about the possibility of this becoming actual law. We know what the House makeup is. We know what the Senate makeup is. Where is Senator Joe Manchin on a bill like this?
Well, apparently he's been keeping kind of mum about it. I think it's almost certain it is going to go through the House. Nancy Pelosi actually twisted the arms of everyone in the Democratic caucus so that every single member of the House on the Democratic side is a sponsor. So that means hopefully someone like Joe Manchin will finally realize this is a bad idea and he'll vote against it. If not, then it's going to be entirely up to the Republican caucus led by Senator Mitch McConnell to filibuster this bill and keep it from going through.
I mean, at this point, one of the reasons why Democrats argue that this needs to happen, and I've seen them all doing it, including their top election lawyer, Mark Elias, Hans, they keep arguing that this is about voter access, that we just need to stop suppressing votes. And they often turn it into a racial argument. They suggest that somehow that voter laws of any kind are a threat to black voters, that will keep black voters away from the polls. When you hear these arguments that votes are being suppressed and we need some sort of law to rectify that, what do you think?
Oh, that is, I can't use the word I would describe that with on the air to tell you that is just wrong. And there's just a couple of quick things about that. First of all, look, we've had record turnout in the last few elections at a time when Democrats have been claiming, there's all these voter suppression laws around. Yes. In fact, in the 2012 presidential race, black turnout in America was higher than white turnout in elections. Also, it shows a remarkably, I think, racist, patronizing attitude towards, for example, black Americans by people who think that they can't cope with a voter ID law. And finally, look, yeah, you want access with elections, but access has to be balanced with security. And you talk to the average voter, I don't care which political party they support, and they'll agree with that.
Yes. Most important thing is instilling confidence in this process so that we can continue as a country. Thank you very much, Hans von Spakovsky. Always good to talk to you and good insight.
Thanks for having me.